Are we good?
We're good.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. This is exciting. My name is Sue Paul. Uh, how do you advance? Enter? Enter?
Are you okay?
Not okay. It's not advancing. How do I advance my slide?
Um, can you use the arrow button? Will that work?
Oh, there we go. Okay.
There.
Yeah, it was just
Good.
slow. Okay. Just a quick note about me. My name is Sue Paul. I've been an occupational therapist for 33 years. I currently work in wellness side of things because I've kind of love this kind of hybrid world between prevention and rehab. So I've spent the majority of my career in geriatrics, working with older adults primarily with a neurodegenerative condition. And I got really good at intervening with various stages of dementia and how to kind of stave off the next stage of decline. I got on the preventative side when research kind of caught up with all the things I had known anecdotally that slow decline or just promote healthy aging, but the research hadn't really been there yet. So um, it was in some of that just growth process of my own experience that I kind of landed on this idea for a senior park. So on that note, I'll tell you my little story real quick. The year was 2012. I was doing home health and I was with a family where this daughter who's about my age had two middle school sons. She was a single mom, and she had two parents in different stages of Alzheimer's disease, and they all lived in this house together. She went to work every day, the boys went to school every day, and the parents were home alone, and the dad had to supervise the mother. He was in early stages, she was in middle stage dementia. So every time the daughter came home from work, she had to lock the door because she never knew what she was going to find. The car could be missing, the mother could be missing, the dad could be on the roof. I mean, it was just she was such a mess, and the boys couldn't go anywhere after school. They couldn't do sports. She couldn't go out anywhere. And I said, "Is there nowhere that you can go with your family?" And she goes, "No, we can't go to a restaurant. We can't go to a movies. We can't go to the mall. The boys can't go. We're stuck here. I can't go anywhere." And I said, "Gosh, if I had a bag of money, I would build you a place where you could take your family." And I was driving home that day from literally from her appointment and past a park where I saw parents sitting around talking with each other and watching their kids play on age appropriate features in the park. And I'm like, why is there no thing like this for the largest tax-paying demographic? Like, where is this? So I went to the mayor of the city of Frederick in Maryland and I said, let's build a park for seniors. And I literally thought it would take a couple weeks. And I thought, okay, great, we'll do that. And the mayor loved the idea. 2012 is when that was. And then it wasn't until 2017 where I formed a nonprofit called Seniorscapes to kind of get some formality behind this and get some more energy behind it. So I'll tell you where we're at with this process later in my presentation, but I do want to thank Diane kind of ahead of time or excuse me, Dr. Martin, because without your encouragement, I don't think I could have tied all this together as neatly as I have. So thank you. So the literature review is it's very multifactorial. Starting with just the simple demographics of the aging population, we have 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every day. With the rise in age comes a rise in chronic disease. 92% of older adults have at least one chronic condition, and 77% have at least two. And then 2/3 of deaths among 65 and older are caused by heart disease, cancer, stroke, and diabetes. So there's lots of, and I knew all this from just living, doing my job every day as an OT. But until I dug into the research to really put numbers to that, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. So then in my particular, um, you know, city where I'm building this park is a population of 86,000 people. And the city of Frederick's aging at 3 times the national rate and 3 times the rate of Florida, which is also interesting. 1 in 5 Frederick residents is 60 or older. The 85 plus cohort is set to quadruple. 11% of the population age 65 or older has a diagnosis of dementia. And just from the park perspective, there are 22 large county parks, 72 city managed parks, 4 dog parks and 0 senior parks. So I like to throw that statistic around when I'm talking to people. Let me move this. Okay. Okay, so also in the literature review, I had to, besides just the demographics of the aging population, I had to look at what is healthy aging? What does that even mean? And then and there's lots of resources. The World Health Organization has a definition, the National Institute of Aging has their own definition. And then there's just common sense. What's your definition? But healthy aging involves, good physical health, cognitive health, emotional health, having good social connections, managing chronic conditions, and having a nutritious, healthy diet. And then barriers to healthy aging, which is why we have jobs, those of us who do this kind of work, is because we have, such a high incidence of falls, mobility impairment, food and nutrition security, chronic diseases, dementia, and again, the loneliness and isolation issue. So all of these issues around aging, impairments that accompany aging, the prevalence of chronic disease and dementia, all of this stuff I knew. Like I carry this around like we have to do something here. There's so much we could do to make people healthier. And so that's when my park that started as maybe the idea came from the idea of helping people with Alzheimer's. I was like, there's so much to be done that we could really do just around healthy aging. Like, how could we elevate the purpose and the meaning of this park to answer a large social problem? So what came out of all of my research is this basically a framework. I came up with, well, I didn't come up with it, but in the research, there are 6 tenets of healthy aging. These are the obvious buckets of aging, of health topics, where you have physical activity, cognitive health, emotional, mental well-being, chronic disease management, social engagement, and nutrition. So the question was, how can a park address all of these six tenets? How can we use the park to for the participants' benefit? And the research was pretty overwhelming, that there's a ton of research to support a park that can promote these healthy aging tenets. So I know you can't read my little green boxes over there, but just as an example, for example, physical activity. The park can provide opportunities for cardiovascular, strength, balance, and mobility training. And what that leads to in the research is things like walking is consistently associated with better physical quality of life. People at risk with or that have cardiovascular disease. Strength training is one of the most important tactics to slow the effects of aging, as it promotes improvements in functional capacity, muscle mass, and strength in the elderly. Balance training improves postural control and reduces fall risk. And mobility training improves functional mobility and self-care function in older adults. So all those little green boxes are just bullet points from the research that support each one of these tenets. I'll give you another example. So social engagement has a significant and positive influence on well-being and overall longevity, which is, how we can support the park support social engagement. What I really like is learning just about nature and the effect of just green space and being in nature and the effect on well-being. The presence and quality of neighborhood green spaces are linked to enhanced well-being and reduced levels of depression, anxiety, and stress. Individuals who spent time in nature and natural environments reported lower levels of stress and anxiety compared to those who spent time in urban settings. Green spaces promote social interactions and community cohesion, and natural environments facilitate social ties and reduce feelings of loneliness. So I had a great time, honestly, looking into this research and pulling it back to the park and proving what I've known in my heart, that this is really going to make a big impact. So the description of my capstone is that I'm, as an occupational therapist, creating a best practice guide for the creation of senior parks based on the 6 tenets of healthy aging. And again, thank you to Dr. Martin for pushing me in this direction. The results were the first ever evidence-based best practice guide for the development of senior-centric parks. Who knew that this was a needed thing? I didn't really even realize that. But if you go to websites like the National Parks and Rec Association, or company called Playcore, which does a lot of research for playground and stuff like that. They have guide after guide after guide after guide, all of these specialty publications that they put out for things like, um, you know, playgrounds for children, adult fitness, inclusive play, all of these specific guidebooks, but not one that talks about what a senior park would look like. So I got to design and put together the very first evidence-based guidebook that supports this. And it could be used by urban planners, landscape architects, people in the playground industry, policymakers. Gone is like, it's not Sue Paul's whimsical idea anymore. It's actually like a research-based guide they can follow. So let me tell you about senior-centric design. We want to, when you're thinking about a senior park, you want to consider parking. You want to consider maybe having a drop-off zone so the person can get right out of the car and, within 20 feet be at a bench. You want a bathroom on site, water, shade structures. It should be level, calm, and active areas. We need nice wide sidewalks for side-by-side interaction, not just, follow me. Inclusive seating, low impact equipment, and things like that. And I'm going to show you what some of this looks like in a minute. But what I was able to do is create a checklist of all of these things that, a planner could use to make sure that they're covering all of the design elements that are intended. For dementia-friendly considerations, we'd like to make sure that there's some kind of wander barrier. So there's a single entrance and exit through the park. It's not like, it can be a fence, but it can be just like, it could be bushes and trees. It could be natural barriers too, but you want to kind of confine the area to, for those people who might wander. You want to have both calm and active spaces for the sensory seekers and the sensory avoiders. You need some caregiver respite, right? So let's put a gazebo or a pavilion right by the entrance and exit. So with line of sight throughout the park, so they can keep an eye on their loved one as they walk around the area. Embedded brain games. Yeah. And then also things in the research like resistance, fitness equipment. You want signage and wayfinding that's easy for the people to use. Lots of places for socialization. So I'm going to show you what some of this looks like. In summary, we want to shift about how we think about aging and how we can utilize public resources like parks. And we can make a positive impact on the health and well-being of older adults by transferring knowledge into action. And that's the home run for the OT in this realm, because this is exactly what we do. This is exactly what I've known in my heart for all of these years in practice. Like, if I could build a park, this is exactly what I would do. And then, lo and behold, the research supports that. So let me tell you about my journey. I told you in 2012, I had the eureka idea. Hey, let's build a park for seniors. In 2013, I presented to the Parks and Rec Commission. They were like, yay, let's do it. Things kind of putzed around. 2014, again, presented to the mayor and alderman board. In 2015, there was a scandal with the City of Frederick Parks and Rec department where they had to end up firing the director, and then they had an interim director, and then they had, so it was sort of they couldn't get their act together for a couple of years. I did incorporate the nonprofit in 2017, just kind of making some slow progress, and then wham, COVID hits, and I wasn't able to really move the needle at all, except what came out of that was, as you know, during COVID, where they were like, oh my gosh, our older adults are so lonely. They are locked inside their homes and they have no safe place to go outdoors, right? I was like, oh my gosh, why don't we have this park built yet? Because this is exactly what we need. It's a safe outdoor space, especially in times of pandemic. And then now I'm happy to report in 2024, it is officially happening, and we will break ground next month. So finally coming around. And this is kind of what our park looks like. I'm sorry, Zoom. Okay, so let me kind of walk you through this if I can. I mentioned the parking is, it's over here on the right side, lower right side of the diagram. You can park right next to the spot. This is the drop-off zone, this green circle, and then they can walk right into the bathroom and the water fountain. And then across this little bridge and into the park. So the park has all the features I mentioned. So you have this brown area down at the bottom here is the exercise cluster. So we have resistance equipment and some cardio equipment. The walking path is about I think it's an eighth of a mile. So it's it's a pretty good walking path. We have a stretching station. We have some balance equipment. There's an up and go. There's some parallel bars and things like that. If you go up around the top of the picture here, the top of the park, there's a pavilion off to the right, up in the upper right-hand corner. And the view out the top of this picture is a vista of green space, right? It's just a beautiful view of a creek and big trees, and it's a very calm, natural setting. So from that pavilion, there'll be some benches that face outward and face that space. And later down the road, we could add more tranquility sort of features that way, but that would be sort of the quiet area of this space. As you make your way toward the left side, I don't know if you see these long rectangle kind of images. Those are surface challenges. So they're parallel bars with different surfaces that the person can step on. So they'll walk across grass, they'll walk across rocks, they'll walk across, have to step over little sticks. And it's just different like wavy surfaces that they can walk across to practice their mobility and balance. Then around the top of the park, there'll be some like kind of brain games embedded in the sidewalk, just like you'd see like in a kid's park. So step on all these little boxes or little ladders or whatever we can put in the sidewalk, like sidewalk paint. As you come down this way, you see this blue stream running through the park. It's actually a painted stream. It's fake. And the idea was to build challenges to cross the stream to make it more interesting. So there's a stairs and ramp feature that goes over this first part of the stream here. So they can practice their mobility, or they can just go around it. They don't have to go over the stairs and ramps, but it's a great place to practice. There's also a log crossover, like a log beam with parallel bars. Gate pattern, gate patterns that walk across it. Then they have stepping stones, so that's a different kind of gate pattern as they walk across the stream there. And then the other way, just walk flat across it if you want to. Down to the lower left, we have the outdoor symphony, which is, lots of good sensory stuff, music instruments, just places to sit and visit. And then I mentioned the exercise. There's also a putting green up here for anybody who wants to do that. And then it's also an open green space if you wanted to do Tai Chi or, have a small group out there and things like that. So this parking lot, this park area is part of a larger park, but it's a great hub for any kind of senior-centric activity that the community wants to have. Like they could host the Alzheimer's Walk, can start and finish in this space. We could have farmers markets, food trucks. There's a mobile dentist, things like that. Just different senior-centric sort of services that could kind of pop by the park and be a place to host those sort of things. And then I'll show you some equipment. So this is like some of the fitness equipment. It's basically everything you see in a gym. But it's easy to get in and out of. It's accessible and it's low impact. So there's nothing too crazy. And there's some cardio equipment and a walking path. These are some of the balance things. I mentioned the balance beam and parallel bars. There's an up and go where they have to, just like the timed up and go, they have to get up off the seat, walk around this little style here, and then back to the seat. There's a place you can practice stepping up and down. The stairs and ramps go over the stream. And these are the surface challenges I talked about where they practice walking on different types of surfaces. Putting green. This is like an example of just a cognitive game we could have, like where they have to match the analog time to digital time because clock use can get challenging. Music station, different kind of percussion instruments we can put out there. And then, so this is how I got it funded. The city of Frederick, in their capital improvement budget, gave us $130,000. I was just able to secure a community block grant for $354,000. The Delaplane Foundation gave us a grant for 25,000. The AARP Community Development Grant gave me 15,000. And then the Asbury Foundation, who's the foundation is the philanthropic arm of my employer, gave us 100,000. So with that 100,000, they get naming rights. So it's actually going to be called Asbury Seniorscapes at Monocacy Village Park. So yeah, it was just in the paper last week, Frederick News Post. If you want to look it up, that it's coming. I've told you everything that the article says, but it is coming up next. We should be breaking ground next month if the weather holds out. So thank you for this opportunity, and Dr. Martin, thank you so much for pushing me in this direction. It's such a no-brainer now that it's done.
Okay, so I'm gonna go first, Sue, because I think there's more to this that you need to talk about.
Okay.
So can you talk a little bit about what your actual, like, the pieces that you did for this capstone? Because I think the book that you wrote basically and how it was developed, can you just talk a little bit about that and what that looked like and your thought process behind the storytelling? Because I think that's a big piece of the OT
Yeah,
park, the
you're right.
storytelling, and then how that kind of flowed into how to make this park, how to do this if you wanted to.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, so there was so many stories I collected for years because this has been years in the making. And I got to do home health for all those years and meet people where they're at in their homes, in their communities, in their neighborhoods. So I would ask people, what do you think about the park? And do you have a park nearby? Do you have a park in your neighborhood? And all the time, people would tell me, "Oh my gosh, I love the park. I go to the park all the time." And I said, "Oh my gosh, what do you do at the park?" And this one lady said, "Well, my husband drives me down the street to the park and he drops me off on the sidewalk there. And because there's no parking nearby, so he just kind of pulls off the side of the road and waits for her." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, what do you do when you go in the park?" She goes, "Oh, well, right on the sidewalk there outside the park is a bike rack. And I can hold on to the bike rack and do my exercises at the bike rack." And I said, "Well, do you go into the park?" And she goes, "Oh, no, I don't go into the park because there's all these kids running around and I'm afraid they're going to knock me down. So I don't go into the park. I just use the bike rack. But the bike rack's amazing." Like she's so delighted with the bike rack. And I was like, "Well, what if there was a park that where you could hold on to things that were designed for you?" And she's like, "Oh, that would be amazing. Where is this park?" So that's kind of the stories then I have so many of them. Another lady said, "Oh my gosh, I love the park." And I said, "What do you do at the park?" She said, "Oh, I go with my daughter to go walking." And I said, "Oh, you go walking at the park?" She goes, "Well, my daughter walks. I sit on the bench." I was like, "Why do you sit on the bench? Why don't you walk?" And she's like, "Because it's so far to walk across, the whole path goes around the soccer field and I can't make it around the soccer field. And there's no benches along the way. So I just kind of sit at the bench by, that's kind of by the sidewalk there and I wait for her." And she goes, "But if somebody's already sitting on that bench, then I just wait in the car and I watch." So like, that's your experience at the park? What if I built you a park? And they're like, "Oh my gosh, that would be great. Where's this park? I want to go." I mean, over and over and over, there were so many stories of people who, like another couple, went to the park, and next to the park there's a creek that runs through the park, and there's a little bridge like a road, a driving bridge, and on the bridge is some railings, and they would go and hold on to the railings on the bridge with the traffic to do their exercises because there's no place to hold on to in their park in this big beautiful park, that has features for every type of user, for the frisbee players and the basketball players and the people who can jog and the people who, tennis players. And there's park features for every type of user except the older adult. There's kid parks. You have the toddler park, you have the big kid park, you have the zip lining, crazy, ninja parks. Like there's so many park and playgrounds designed for every type of user except the senior, which was just making me nuts. So that's sort of how I came. That's how I got here. It's been a journey of hit and miss, but putting together the book it's a lot of storytelling. It's telling those stories and then the remedy to it. Like, this is like we're going to use the ADA guidelines. That's fine. We're going to use um, these best practices that are already in existence, that's fine. Let's do that too. But you need to have these considerations that are from a rehab perspective or from an OT perspective, because we have better insight into what they need, how to keep them safe, but how to challenge them also. Like, we have to challenge them, or else they're just going to sit on the bench. They can do that, but we don't bring kids to the park and have them sit on the bench. That's the opposite of what they do at the park. So, like, anyway, do you feel my frustration and my passion for this? I can't, yes. Diane, did I answer your question? Did I talk about that?
Yes, yes. So the book or the piece that, and you could essentially work through and provide this to different places and make profit from it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way that you have it designed by telling those stories from that kind of OT perspective, and then, like you said, falling into then this story correlates with this part of the park, that design of
Mm-hmm.
the park. So that's the way it kind of it falls, which is the most unique piece of this, I think, which is really cool.
Yeah, it was, and it's challenging to put it together because there's so many factors, and this is why I had to, bother you so many times. Like, I think like, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing because there's so much information, and it's really hard to corral it into like a meaningful way that is easy to understand. But the storytelling definitely paints the picture. Everybody knows somebody who has a mobility issue, a chronic disease issue, is just so bored and so lonely and just would love to get outside, or there's so many anecdotes to this. Yeah, so the guide, so it's not just a boring encyclopedia of rules and guidelines. This is why, this is a story that matches, this, that indicates why we need to do this.
Mhm, mhm.
So I hope I've conveyed that.
Yes, yes. Okay. Tam, you have a question, I'm sure.
Do. I do. But this is fascinating and wonderful, and thank you very much for all of your work in putting this together. I guess my question is this: have you thought about, after the park is finished and people are using the park, how will you assess how well it's being used, and maybe how well or not some aspects of the park are being used?
That's a great question. So I do plan to look at outcomes, and I'll get to that, but I also can't help but feel a little because every time they build an $11 million children's playground, they don't look at the user
Yeah.
the user,
Yeah.
usability of it, and they don't measure anything. So anyway, that's the disparity. But yes, we need to measure outcomes. So there are a few organizations that do this. I thought about maybe putting up a QR code that goes to a survey that we can kind of track just some feedback. But they do look at usage, park usage, and I think they use cellular data to see how populated it gets in that area. That's one way to look at it. I think because I'm really close with the providers and all of the elder services of Frederick, I think I'll be able to get a good handle on some feedback anyway. But yeah, I'm hoping to partner with one of those organizations that does that sort of looks at outcomes after this. Yeah, it's a tricky thing.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the fact that you said that they don't look at this with other parts.
Kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to know it's working? I'm like, I don't know. How do you know the kids park is working?
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Great. Thank you, Sue.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Gonna go places. I'm super excited to see how it kind of rolls out once you break ground. And I hope you get are you gonna get ribbon cutting pictures?
Oh yeah, we'll do the ribbon cutting. Yep.
I
For
love
sure.
that. Please send them to me.
Yeah. I will.
It'll be super fun to watch the progress of that.
Well, this is all because of you, so thank you for pushing me this
No,
through.
you did it.
But you reminded me that I did it.
Okay. I'm going to, oh, you know what? I'm going to stop this recording first.